Tonight, let's give a big hand to the most wonderful Fred Johnson. Hi, Fred, how are you?
I'm very good. It's a real honor to be here again. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I really appreciate it.
Yes, you were on Solo Arts Heal with us, and I said, we must have you on my show. And there's things like you've opened for Aretha Franklin, you've opened from Deepak Chopra, you are an arts and healing person, and you're working at the Straz Center on the Health and Art Initiative. You've been an educator, you've been a musician, you've been a vet, you've been everything. So thank you so much for joining us. Talking about your music stuff, tell me a little bit about this wide range of music things in your life.
Well, as I mentioned when I was here before, music has always been a really, really important part of my life. I can't ever remember a time when music wasn't there for me. And when I first began to speak, it was much more comfortable for me to sing what I was thinking than to say what I was thinking. So, music has been it's been my anchor. It has been a really important part of my life. But interestingly enough, back in the mid 70s, there was a portion of time where I didn't do any singing at all. I actually studied classical pantomime, and I was a member of the National Mime Theater in Boston, Massachusetts. And quite frankly, I feel like the study of silence really helped me to more vividly understand the dynamic of sound. But I grew up, in my house listening to Billie Holiday and Pearl Bailey and Carmen McRae and Duke Ellington and Miles Davis. So I was kind of immersed in jazz. My dad was a huge jazz lover, and his favorite singer was Joe Williams. And so I listened to a lot of Joe Williams. So it was a natural thing for me to kind of live into the jazz thing. And because I was kind of a spontaneous singer by nature anyway, I took to jazz really early on, and where I grew up, there were a lot of great jazz musicians and opportunities to hang around the cats and kind of learn from them. When I was in high school, I got involved with musical theater and did a lot of summer stock theater. And then when I got out of the service, I studied at the National Academy for the Performing Arts. And then my ilk was to move into mime. I've had the opportunity in my life to open for a lot of jazz greats. I was kind of one of the mainline opening acts. I had the opportunity to open for Sonny Rollins and Dizzy Gillespie and Miles Davis and Ramsey Lewis, and I toured with Chick Corea. But then, I did have the opportunity to open for Aretha Franklin and Patti LaBelle, B.B. King. Been very fortunate in my life to kind of be immersed in music. And along the way, because of kind of my early life circumstances, music is how I communicated with young people. So I've always had a commitment to work into the community, which hence kind of led me into combining music and theater and teaching and becoming an educator. So it's been a part of my life, all of my life. And I've also had the opportunity to go to some way far places and learn some interesting approaches to sound and music, and studied with two amazing teachers from West Africa who introduced me to this whole tradition of oral storytelling and the sharing and keeping of history, and then using music and verse for healing. So I've just been really fortunate to travel the world singing for my supper for a long time.
So are you saying that you sang when you opened for these groups? Did you play a musical instrument?
I sang. I mean, I primarily sang. I headed up bands. I do play a couple of indigenous instruments, and I play hand drums. But for most of those artists that I open for, I mean, I would sit at the drums and play, but mainly, I mean, I'm primarily known for my vocal improvisational skills. So I was a I was a singer. I was opening up. I was warming up the room so that they could take it over the top.
You were the warming up singer for the warmed up singer.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So I know that what we're hoping to talk about today is it's about the times and the voice of the heart and the singing of the heart, and the healing of the heart. So tell me a little bit about what you've been doing lately.
What I've been doing prior to COVID was sort of holding up a banner and holding up a conversation to everyone who would listen, and especially to the arts world, and also to the medical world, the allopathic medical world, the importance of creativity and art as a real modality or a pathway towards healing. When we take a look at our lives, and it's interestingly enough, I was in a conversation today with my wife about one of my sons who has really started to go to an integrated medicine physician who has medical degrees in MD, but he also has a solid background in psychology and psychiatry and in Ayurvedic, so it kind of a mind, body, spirit thing, but in a real practical sense. The indigenous cultures of the world have always utilized music and dance as a way to calm the spirit or to bring the energy of the earth back into an individual's presence when they get out of sorts. And so, I've had the opportunity many times in my life to witness and also participate in an engagement of creativity, an engagement of awakening people and moving them from a state of feeling like they're out of balance to really beginning to recreate the fullness of themselves. So I've been involved in the last few years pretty heavily in a conversation about the importance of artistic expression, the importance of the artist as being catalyst for healing and wholeness and rejuvenation. And then, COVID-19 became a reality in our lives, and we were separated from each other. We had to distance from each other. We were sequestered in our homes for a long period of time. And so another level of personal engagement happened, and many people were seeking creative ways to fill their time, creative ways to feel whole, painting and creating themselves, seeking out music. Those of us who are the purveyors of art, we offered our art because our hearts guided us to know, well, hey, I'm not out doing my gigs, but I want to be a part of helping people to feel whole, and so artistic expression and creativity regained its place a bit more in terms of the importance of how we move through our day. And then the continuation of a horrific reality of a disproportionate number of Black men and women who are killed by people who have power, like police officers, happened. And we lost George Floyd, and people awakened, many people who were not that close to that conversation and that reality of being on the short end of oppression, began to listen in a different way. And I began to hear people say, I want to know more. I realize there's so much that I don't know, and I heard, people of color saying, look, when is this going to end? What do I have to do? What do we have to do in order to get people to recognize our humanity? What will it take? And so it sort of, realigned in me an understanding that one of the most important things for me to do, I believe now, and for all of us to do, is to really reconnect our hearts. And so this idea of voicing the heart is really been born out of several weeks of holding space where people could come together, and many people who felt like, their hurt, their pain, their distress, their trauma had not really been listened to before. And others who come from a world, a more privileged world, were listening with another set of ears. And you could really tell that this was not an intellectual conversation where someone was trying to explain something to somebody else and they were trying to find a place for it in their mind. You could literally energetically feel and understand that this was a conversation or a voicing of the heart. It was an appeal and a calling, and you could almost palpably feel the pulsation of the energy of two human beings who were seeking, one seeking to be understood and the other seeking to really open their eyes and their ears and to hear and understand more deeply. And so this whole concept of the way that we move to the next level is to really reignite our hearts, to really listen with our hearts, to deeply understand and feel, and let that be the foundation for manifesting systemic changes and manifesting a desire of a new way for us to be with each other. And that's truly, I believe, and I feel, a heart journey. And so hence, for the last few weeks, I've been doing these experiences of voicing the heart, because I've seen it so many times in my life. If people get to see each other and really look into each other's eyes in a different way and really hear and feel when the feeling begins, then the energy shifts and then changes occur, because the change begins from the inside out. So hence the whole concept of the voicing of the heart.
Do you have any specific things, more, even more specific things that you can say about that, and maybe how that voice in the heart is related to the music within you?
Well, I think that the voicing of the heart, Stephanie, and this is not like some kind of a metaphysical thing, but I believe that when people truly listen to another, that there's a music that happens between the two of them, and it ignites frequencies of resonance. You know, there's a lot of study that's been done there in California by the Heart Math Institute that talks about heart coherence. It talks about the fact that the energy of the human heart really kind of resonates somewhere between 2 and 3 feet out, around and away from the body. So, you know, the specific thing is like, um, um, you know, I can share with you an experience that I had, because I'm in a space where I feel safe. I can share an experience with you and not be afraid to really fully, I mean, if we want to be real specific about it, the struggles that Black people have experienced for hundreds of years and continue to experience in America are horrific, and they are demeaning, and they are humanly diminishing. If I have to walk out of my house, I'll be 70 years old my next birthday. And I was having a conversation with a group of people where I could honestly say that for 65 of those 70 years, every day of my life, I have had to deal with the reality that I could, within a breath, walk into a situation where, merely because my skin is Black, I'm going to be treated different. I'm going to be judged different. I'm going to be denied something. I'm going to be not heard. I'm going to be feared. And that's a powerful thing. So when human beings are having a conversation about that, about the reality that, someone says, well, all lives matter. Why does there, what does Black Lives Matter? And the fact that there needs to be a championing of the idea that this Black life matters, because I'm the human, and because of who I am, and because of what I bear, because of a system that was created not by me, not for me, not of me. This is a struggle that I bear. This is a struggle that I have to prepare my children for. This is a struggle that I have to compensate for so the energy of that truth needs to be not just heard, but felt. And when it begins to be felt is when an individual who doesn't have that experience is able to say, oh my God, why should anyone have to suffer that? Oh my God, what if I had to suffer that? oh my God, if you're hurting, then I'm hurting. But so many of us have felt like, you know what? I'm just going to shut my mouth. And, like my reality and the reality for Black people in America has been, you got to make it in spite of. In spite of. So this heart journey is not like, that's not a philosophical coming together. That's a heart coming together. That's a feeling and a remembrance of those who struggle to convey. And I was involved in a really, really powerful meeting this past Friday with a group of all Black artists, and we had a community forum that was sponsored by the Beechwood Foundation. Just two amazing folk who live in Westport, Connecticut, Frederick Chu and his wife, Janine. And they opened their space up for artists to come in and express. And at the end of this was this gathering where there was a conversation where, folk were saying, I shouldn't just do the right thing. I shouldn't have to explain me to you. I shouldn't. But Stephanie, I've seen so many times in my life that at some point, creation gives us an opportunity to remember our highest selves, to go to our highest place. Some folk never get there. I get that. I'm not talking pie in the sky, but I've seen too many times in my life when people crossed over from, let me see, what do I think about this, to, oh my God, I feel this. Then change happens. True conversations, true engagement, and true commitment. Not blame, acknowledgement, and a commitment that there's not a problem that exists in the world today that if we, as the human family, choose to change it, it can change.
Yeah.
And this is a journey of the heart. This is a journey of the heart that leads the mind, that leads our decision for the greater good of everyone, so that everyone is fully and completely empowered and involved, included in how we choose to be. If America is going to get better, if the world is going to get better, we have to choose to be different with each other. And that's in part a journey of the heart. Because if my heart changes, then how I choose to be is going to change.
And how would you, in terms of arts and healing, how do you start to integrate that?
I mean, I think you're doing a magnificent job of that. You create a forum, you create an opportunity for people to share their experiences, whether it's an experience, a true experience in life that has caused someone to have to deal with devastating circumstances that they were able to move through and survive through, and they're able to share with you their joys and their sadness and their unknowingnesses, and they're able to help you to have a measure of commonality. I mean, you do that. I mean, I think as artists, it's important for us to tell our truth. I think as arts institutions like you do, Stephanie, it's important for, all voices to have access, for there to be opportunities for Black artists to be able to truly share the realities of Black life, where our indigenous brothers and sisters have the opportunity to share the realities of their life. Where, when I went to work in New York for 15 years, back in 2009, and I went to an organization called Intersections, which was a multi-faith, multicultural initiative that worked in trouble spots in the world and where people were having challenge. And they said to me, why do you think art is important? Or what do you want to do? And I said, I want to redefine the understanding and the role of art and the artists to serve as catalysts for true human transformation. The human mind and the human being has the capacity to know beauty. I've seen people nose to nose about to knock each other out, and a butterfly will fly by, and for a minute they'll stop and look. And then we have this desire to be guided towards things of beauty. The question is, can we as artists create forums, create spaces for truth, create spaces for imagination, and create opportunities so that the heart inspires our minds to manifest more beauty? So it's time for us to speak now. It's time for us to not be afraid to speak. It's time for us to not be afraid to open up our spaces and say, we either grow together or we atrophy together. And so I believe that, the replication of those possibilities comes from the actors and the singers and the poets and the dancers and the writers, the creators of the mystique of the mystery and imagination. So many of our children in the world today are damaged because the circumstances of their life has null and voided their ability to imagine. Their imagination is shut off. We need to reawaken our imagination. Everything that we see in the world is a byproduct of someone's imagination. We use it to our benefit, but do we use it to the benefit of all? This is about manifesting and being differently. Writing new plays, creating new plays, taking a look at the examples in our lives and bringing them into a forum where people can see them and hear them in a different way. It's the old adage of when you're a kid growing up, your parents are telling you really great things and you don't want to hear it. You can't hear it. It's like you don't want to hear it because you've already made up in your mind that they just don't love me or they don't understand me. But then that same child will go out into the world and either a coach or a drama teacher or a piano teacher or a dance instructor or a photographer or a painter, something will inspire them. And that very same thing that parent tried to share with them that they couldn't hear, they hear from that other person. So the masks that we're allowed as artists to take on and take off, and the examples that people will give us permission to present to them can awaken their hearts. Especially, I think, if we're at the same time having this conversation that says, come on, this heals. We want to heal. So many of us are walking around angry and scared and just, out of sorts because of something that happened to us when we were little, or something that we wanted, or we wanted to be heard and we felt that we weren't heard. So if we can begin to take another look at that and create experiences that inspire, experiences that are forgiving, in a play, two people, two brothers, or a brother and a sister, or a mother and a father, or a husband and a wife, or a human and an animal can replicate an experience of life, and all of a sudden we hear it and we feel it because we've had that experience. It's talking to us, but it's not talking about us, and we gather that in our hearts. And so if we can gather and have that be a real opportunity for people to be reminded, I believe that's why the theater happened in the first place.
So in the theater, there are let's talk about two aspects of it. Okay. One is the person putting on the theater, and at the Marsh, it's about solo performance. So it's very much about the experience of that person and how it comes out into the world, in what context, in what story. And then there is the people watching and how do you see that all coming together? You know what I mean? Like the effect on the artist for having the audience be part of their story, and the artist having the audience be part of.
I feel like there are tremendous opportunities for that kind of engagement, and I think more and more of those things happen. My thing the way I do that is to engage people in conversations and ask people to give me words and concepts and ideas, and they give me that. And then from that, I create a piece. But I think that there is a healing for the artist when the artist is given the opportunity to live through this creative experience, and I think that that's really important and meaningful. And I also believe that, there's a trust. There's a trust that exists when 30, 40, 50, 100, 500, 1,000, 2,600 people come from all parts of the city. Now they're coming to their live streams. But when people give themselves permission to come to a common place, and the lights flicker and the lights go down, and all of a sudden, this group of people or this individual who is sitting and watching this experience, they allow themselves to go on a journey with the artist. They breathe with that artist. They laugh with that artist. They cry with that artist. They feel something. They let the external world go. And they go into what I call sort of the inner garden. They go into this glorious place of possibility, and they allow us to take them on a journey. So that's a huge responsibility. But one of the reasons why that responsibility becomes an honor and a really valid experience is because so many of us as artists, we live ourselves into the energy of it. And we allow ourselves to not just speak, there's an energetic connection. There's a connection that happens. And that's where the healing happens. That's where the beauty happens. Human beings are magnificent creations. If we can allow ourselves to be vehicles, but we can only do that if we continue to nurture ourselves. Like, I've spent more time outside than I have in years since COVID-19. I hear and distinguish the sounds of different birds, and I don't have to look at them. I hear the sound of the wind as it blows through the trees differently now, because I'm giving myself permission to do that. And on some level, even though I've been on Zoom like crazy, there's still a lot of technology and other things. I haven't been driving in a car as much. We're allowing ourselves to live into an awakening of this palette of life. So if as artists, we live ourselves into the joy and the possibility of recreating some small measure of the palette of life and share that with the audience, then there's a truth there. There's a coherence. There's a heart connection that happens there that gives the mind a comfort that doesn't happen in the workaday place. Now, if you're working at a job that you love, then you're not working. But you know what I mean. All of the challenges that we face right now, to be able to just step back for a moment and say, let me just create this piece of music just because I want to touch and feel like I've been touched, and let it just be an innocent surrender of the possibility of a moment of joy. And if to any small measure, as the artist, we can do that. And my thing is, the greatest compliment that a person can give you is their time. So if you come to the theater and you spend 2 hours with me, or you come to a concert and you spend 50 minutes or an hour with me, what a great honor, what a great joy, what a great opportunity. So it's like a pass through, and that's what this is all about. Because if we're writing comedy, or if we're writing a play, or if we're writing a song, and if it doesn't have that, and if it doesn't have that pass through, then we continue to work on it. So this is an opportunity for, as artists, for us to work with, our brothers and sisters of humanity, to find a way to at least move the pendulum a bit back more, towards the audience. And, some people perform and some people watch and listen. Who would we be without those people who listen to us? Who would we be without those people who share with us their thoughts and ideas, so that we can commit ourselves more deeply to a connection that's real? That's a huge part of the healing piece too. We need to create the art, and others get the opportunity to share in the experience and we can feel, we know when we're out of body and when we're getting feedback. I know when I'm doing a concert, I'm constantly listening, I'm constantly feeling, trying to feel where the audience is so that I can be on that wavelength. I mean, I could have I improvise a lot, but I could have a set of tunes that I'm going to do and walk into the space and feel the energy is different and change the whole thing because I'm there to be for you that which will enrich you, you know. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think all of that is a process for well-being.
Amazing. I just love when you talk, Fred. I love to hear what you have to say. I don't know how you got to be this way, and we don't need to discuss that right now, perhaps. But are you ready? Do you think it's a good time for you to do some art music?
Sure, sure. I'd be happy to do that. Yeah. Bring in the big chordophone. So this is my beautiful instrument called a chordophone. It comes from the West African string tradition. The process is that these particular instruments that have usually either 4 or 6 strings are designed in storytelling and designed in healing and designed for the process of really being kind of that umbilical cord connection between you and I, those who are in the space, and all of creation. When you first asked me, how do I describe my journey with music? I almost said what I often say, and that is, it's probably easier for me to sing it than to say it. 'Cause when I surrender to the journey of music, it's like a medicine of the heart. So many challenges it seems we face today in this world that feels like it's pulling and tugging away from each other. But oh, what amazing possibilities lie in these moments now. The elders always told me that the greatest challenges bring forth the greatest outcomes in our lives. All the noise, the fuss, the anger, the misunderstanding, the scourge of history has placed us in a place where we need to feel more deeply each other, where we need to look into each other's eyes and realize and feel the beating of our hearts, to feel our humanity and know that you and I, we can be all one through the breath of life itself. So let the pain come forth and let the true story be told. Let the pain come forth and let the true story be told, so that all will know and feel a true reality of pain that can only be rectified when you look into another's eyes and don't see the color, feel who they are, and know that we are one, only divided by our fears and the systems that have been created. But it's time now for a new day, and that new day begins with you and me, looking at each other, listening and realizing that we can change the world, one heart at a time, one truth at a time, by voicing the heart, voicing the heart. See me for who I am, not for a story untrue. See me for who I am, not for some story you've been told about me. My pain is real, my pain has existed for centuries. Feel me, and together we can be a new reality. Open your heart, and together we will voice a new day by voicing the heart, feeling the heart, awakening and deciding that we will be different with each other from now till eternity. Heart to heart, heart to heart, heart to heart.
Well, thank you, Fred. Thank you. That is so heartfelt. Went straight to my heart.
Thank you.
And I would think everybody listening gone straight to the heart. Whoa. Whoa. You just come up with this right now?
Yes, but I mean, the thing, excuse me, I'm just stepping away to put my instrument down. The truth is that a part of the great experience of studying with and being in the presence of some real masters of wisdom and life surrender is that, one of the things that some of us are called to be is just an open vessel, a vessel to allow, the energy and the feeling and the truth to move through us into the world. And so I give honor to Baba Kwame Ishangi and Baba Jimu Kuyate. Baba Kuyate from Senegal and Baba Ishangi from Ghana for sharing with me, the powerful elements of this ancient tradition of being present and getting out of the way and really allowing truth and healing to move through, through music and through heart, so that we can find ourselves again, find a place where we can be whole with each other again, where we can see each other completely again, and have that be the most important thing. So yeah, I just try to get out of the way and let it happen.
Whoa. How do you feel after you do it?
Huh. Um, hmm. um, uh, and empty and full at the same time. So like, there's an emptiness because I mean, the minute that you start to think, then you're creating a song, and it's not about that. It's really rendering, it's what Baba used to call, it's elongated breath, it's elongated chant, but fashioned by the energy of what is existing in our world. So when it's right, I feel an emptiness, but then I also feel a fullness in that I've fully committed to the emptiness. It feels, it's an honor. It's an honor to be able to play that instrument, to be able to be a part of a narrative of hope.
Now, we talked about this uh, Dolly.
Jolly. But you were thinking DIA. You were thinking the D. You have to think Jeff. You can't think.
See what happens when you think? You lose your relationship to reality or the real thing, like the word.
Yeah, no,
So
it's the Jolly tradition, which is and many people know the term griot, who are the oral historians, who play many instruments, but the instrument best known that griots and jollies play is the chordophone. I'm sorry, which is the kora, which is a 21 stringed ancient harp. And that tradition of the griot or the oral historian is passed down from generation to generation. Like Baba Jimo Kuyate, who was my amazing sort of oral teacher. He was the 149th in his lineage of the Jolly tradition. It's passed on through the family. And then, then the Jolly tradition, the oral teller, is the keeper of the joy, the weaver of healing. And you have to kind of be called to do that. You don't just kind of decide, wait, I mean, you don't deem yourself a Jolly and you're in the world. I mean, you're called, led, and guided. Many of the challenges as a young child that I faced in my life, that I spoke about when I was honored to be with you guys before, those developmental years of my life where I created sound all the time. I was a perpetual motion. Tone, I knew tone from the inside out because I could feel where it resonated in my body. So when I was introduced to the sort of formal body of knowledge about sound and healing, I resonated with it completely because it was how I came to know the world. It was how I put myself to sleep, And so, early on in my life, people were worried about me because I made noise, I made sound all the time, and I rocked, but they weren't dissonant sounds. And actually, when you study sound healing, some of those frequencies that don't sound so great are some of the most healing sounds. So, melody and sweet tone is largely a communication thing. It's a vibration and a communication thing. But I created little melodies and I would sing repetitive patterns. And so people kind of got used to it. But all of that work, I believe, I choose to believe that God, that creation gives you all that you require to serve to your highest capacity. So a lot of the understanding that I have and that I was able to grasp around the body of sound and frequency and healing is because I experienced it myself. And it was some of those things that I did that these teachers heard me, that Baba Ishangi heard me spontaneously create one day with the drum, because I didn't know this instrument then. And he said, there, there's something that I have to share with you. It was like, he called me to be his student, and then I was blessed because he and Baba Kuyate were dear friends. I was blessed to have that tutelage, to prepare me to bring these kinds of experiences into a contemporary setting, and it's just now, really, in this year, in these last few months since COVID, I've played the quarterphone more. I've done more of this kind of singing and sharing than I have done in 15 years, because the time calls us to our place, and helps to guide our understanding of how we can serve. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer to your question of how do I feel, but all of the above, I guess, all of that.
It was,
Privilege, you know.
wasn't long-winded at all to me. It was kind of a amazing. So you learned this tradition? Did you study this for a while? How did it
For
integrate
about
into
7 years,
yourself?
I actually met Baba Ishangi when he came. I didn't study in Africa. I studied here in America. They lived here in America. But I met Baba Ishangi when he traveled for the first time to our region here on the west coast of Florida. And I was working as a community outreach coordinator and specialist and taking arts out to the community. And so my job really was to uh, escort Baba to him and his family, who were amazing dancers. And so I drove the van and I drove them around and helped them get set up and helped them set up equipment and made sure their instruments. So my role was that. And he was here for like 7 days. And during that period of time, people would say to him, "Oh man, that's Fred Johnson," and because I was there to serve him. It wasn't about me. And so like on day 6, he said, we were riding in the van, and he said, I want to ask you a question. And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Why haven't you told me, that you sing, and that, you've sung all over the world, and that, you're a drummer, and why haven't you told me that?" And I said, because it wasn't about me, you know what I mean? I was just really honored to be a part of this and to do whatever. So the last performance on the last night, he was on stage, and it was actually at the Performing Arts Center in Tampa. And he said, "I really want to thank Mr. Fred Johnson for all of his support and everything that he's done." And he said, "And I want to call him up here on stage." And he called me up on stage, and as I was coming down, he pulled over a chair and he pulled over a drum, and he said, "Sit." And I sat, and then he leans over to me and he says, "Play." And so I start playing the drum, and he starts playing with me. And then he says, "Sing." Right? Right?
We started this relationship the way it was going to be. He's going to be telling you what to do.
Right. So I said, "Sing." So I started to sing, and I sang a narrative about how much joy and light, he and his family had brought to our town. And, I sang their names and got the audience to sing to them and whatever. When it was done, he, we got up and he hugged me, and, he held me, and then, he looked in my eyes, and then, the concert was over, and I helped him pack up and everything. And he said to me, I have something that I really have to share with you. I need to spend time with you and share some really important things that are going to be important in your life. And I was like, "Oh, Bob, I'm really honored, but I'm like, I'm busy. I'm busy working 6 nights a week, and I'm doing." He was like, "That's okay. I'll wait." And he literally would come to town, because he traveled all over the country, and he would be in Ghana for a couple of months, and then he would come back to the US, and he lived in Brooklyn. But he would come to Tampa, Florida, and he would stay here for days, and he would wait. And then I would work for him. And this went on for like 6.5 years. So I studied with him and Baba Kuyate for about 6.5, 7 years. And interestingly enough, they passed away within 6 months of each other. First Baba Ishangi, and they were young men. They were just in their early 60s. But Baba Ishangi passed away, and then Baba Kuyate passed away. And And that was in 2005. And it was at that point that I realized that I had to, and there was a lot going on in the world then too. And I had already begun in that 7 years to deepen into other forms of sound healing. And Baba Ishangi would go with me, and I would do these sound and breath workshops, and he would play drum and dance. And I mean, it was just an amazing experience. And so I knew in my heart that it was time for me to venture out into the world and to take this that I had learned along with this kind of message and infusion of art and creative expression as a real catalyst, as a pathway to awaken people in new ways of healing. And so, yeah, it was just amazing. It was really life-changing for me. And then I went to the Middle East a lot. I went to Israel a lot. I went to Pakistan and Kazakhstan, and I went to Sardinia. And then I worked in the around 2010, 2011. I mean, when things really started to kick in, where there was real challenges between the community and police officers, especially communities of color, would go into communities and worked with two amazing conflict transformation specialists to work with police departments and communities to find where their disconnect was, and begin to infuse and give police departments another level of understanding, and work with the community to do that. But like I do with sound sculpture and take words and create whatever, we would take where the police department felt they were in relationship to the community, and where the community felt they were, and we took some of the narratives that they each spoke, and we created a piece of theater. And police officers and community members performed in these plays, and then they were presented for the community. In most instances, our biggest and most successful one was in Memphis, Tennessee. We worked in Montclair, New Jersey. And then we did seminars and workshops in Cleveland and Cincinnati. But it's just an amazing thing. I mean, if people will allow us as creatives, we can really, really, as I say, as you have done, Stephanie, is really create an opportunity for us to realize our humanity in so many, many different ways. Is it going to cure everything? No, but it certainly is going to help, and it certainly is going to move us much closer to where I think we were created to be. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So, do you do work? You do workshops, these sound healing workshops?
I do, yeah. I do sound healing workshops. 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, week long, and it's an immersion really in understanding the really connect, because the word spirit, right? We talk about spirit and spirituality. You know that the word spirit comes from the Latin word spiritus, which means breath. So essentially, our knowingness, whatever our tradition may be, but our conversations around spirituality is really a deepening into the journey of the breath. And it is the journey of the breath that keeps all of us alive, and we all breathe from the same source. So when it's difficult for your mind to understand a sense of oneness, we recognize that every breath that we take comes from that one source. We breathe from that same spiritus, from that same breath. So a part of it, of the beginning of the workshops, is living into the stillness and the wholeness of breath and feeling breath. So it's the frequency and pathway of breath aligned with the frequency of thought and the mind, and then the frequency of sound and communication, and how first that frequency of sound can help to align us internally. And then we get into a journey of the external communication with others. So it's a lot of fun. It's very experiential. Yeah.
Maybe you'll do one for MarshStream. But
I'd love to.
meanwhile, oh, right. You just said you would do it.
I will.
I'm sure a lot of people here will be happy. Okay, I've got some questions from the chat. chat
Okay.
from Amy Zins, who used to work for us. I would like to ask Fred if he has done any healing work with elders who are on the journey into dementia. For so many, this is also a journey of improvisation and a path best accompanied by love. Do you have any insights into this realm?
Yeah, my mother moved into dementia, and for about 3.5 years, her last 3.5 years, I was first a caretaker for her, and then she did have to go into a sort of 24-hour critical care thing. But I did a lot of singing and a lot of music for my mom, and I would say, my mom would say, "Oh, you know what? I see through that. I see through that window," because she had a lot of. She would see things like, she would see doorways and in walls and whole journeys, and I would set them to music, and it would settle her, and she would sing with me. Sometimes she would hum with me. So, I have had the experience specifically with her to be able to bring her to a place of calm and peacefulness through music. And sometimes she would get up and she'd dance a little bit, but yeah, a lot with her. One of the most powerful experiences that I had, and this was before I was fully conscious of the full power of sound and its healing elements. When I was a senior in high school, I worked at the New Jersey State Psychiatric Hospital in Trenton, New Jersey, and I worked on a ward that was all the people were in beds. They were in, they were in wheelchairs and things. They had psychiatric problems, but they also, they had ambulatory problems. And when I would come in at 2:45, they would be screaming and hollering and making noise, and I'd start singing, and all of a sudden they would quiet down. And over the course of about 4 months, I kind of created a song for each one of them. So I sang them lullabies at night before they went to bed, and I would sing to them, and they would just really, it was an amazing thing. And the people at the hospital got angry at me. I came into work one day, and my supervisor said, "Look, you're going to have to stop singing to these people." And I'm like, "Why?" They're calm, and they go to sleep, and he said, "Yeah, but when you're not here, they scream your name all day long. Fred, Fred, Fred." So I ended up getting fired from that job because of that. But I think I think
With Fred and without Fred.
That's right. But specifically from the dementia experience, I did have that experience with my mom, and it was very, very meaningful to me and to her, I think, as well.
So Nancy wants you to spell Baba. I think there's two Babas, right?
Yeah.
But spell Baba last name.
Okay, so one is Baba Kouyate, Kouyate. His first name is Jimo, and so it's Djimo, Baba Jimo Kouyate. And my other teacher from Ghana, yes, Jimo Kouyate, and my other teacher and dear friend from Ghana was Kwame, Kwame, Kwame Ishangi, Ishangi, Kwame Ishangi and Jimo Kouyate.
Thank you, Brian, who's been typing them in the chat if you want to see them. Okay, and then how do we find info regarding your sound to breath work? This is from Sherry Sawyer.
So there's a website that you can go. There's a couple of things. There's a Facebook page called Toning Wellness. And I do some work in conjunction with the person who sponsors that. So you can find some of that. Toning Wellness is a Facebook page. And then a website. It's called Daybreak Awakening Call, daybreakawakeningcall.com. And there's some practices on there. And actually on that page, a couple of years ago, I did a Daybreak Awakening Call for 365 days of the year. So every day I did kind of a mantra or a memorable, I call them, that encapsulates positive thought, but also the frequency. And I have a book called The Quiet Callings, which I need to re-release. It was originally released in Israel, and the publisher that did that for me is no longer open. But I have a book called The Quiet Callings, which is a collection of mantric phrases that, when spoken or chanted, the frequencies of them help to balance the body. So I'm going to try to put that out as a an online book that people can gain access to. But daybreakawakeningcall.com and Toning Wellness.
Well, Fred, we've come to 8:30 plus, and as sad as I will be to say we can say goodbye, because I can talk to you probably for the rest of my life. But I am hoping, and I think you can talk for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You like roll like the ocean. You're amazing. Whenever I hear you, all I want to do is take notes.
Oh, well.
So thank you. What an honor.
Thank you. It was my honor. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it again. I really appreciate it.
And when do you think you could do like a MarshStream workshop?
Let's move through the next couple of months and perhaps we can do that. I'm really pretty deeply involved right now in these conversations around racial justice, and I'm really trying to hold space for people to come together to do that. But maybe August, maybe the latter part of August. Let's Sure.
You're saying someone that just sits there and writes down possibilities in their notebook, and sometimes I don't forget, So
Yeah.
I'm going to be calling you about this, Fred, although you have every right to say no.
No, it's good. And the other thing too is if people are interested in getting more information or interested in asking some questions, you can email me at fredjohnsonartist@gmail.com. fredjohnsonartist@gmail.com.
Well, in our chat, we've got so many nice things. Thank you for a beautiful, inspiring evening. Thank you for this sharing the story of your time with your mother in the institution. And thank you for being you. That's from somebody, let's see. We are blessed and fortunate to have Fred join us tonight on MarshStream. Well, that's from Brian, our producing general manager.
All right.
Thank you,
Cool.
Brian.
Thank you. That's good. Thank you, Brian.
Love your wise words that choosing to be better with each other is a journey of the heart. That's from Sherry. Your words alone are beautiful poetry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
And
you all.
someone who misses being an audience. Oh, this is also beautiful and true. I especially like the ideas catalyst. I'm like, catalyst. Oh, my stuff's in front of it. Hold on. The ideas of artists as catalysts for the true human transformation, not transportation, transformation.
Both work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Fred.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Here's
you.
to health and good spirits. Hello, thank you everyone who joined me and Fred tonight. Come back to other shows. Consider making a donation. If everyone makes a donation of even $2, the Marsh will stay alive just another week longer. So thank you all, Fred. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, and see you all soon.
Take care. Thank you, everyone. Take care.